So Pooja, you're so many things. You're a baker, you're an entrepreneur, you're a podcaster, you're an author. You do a ridiculous amount with your day. And I want to ask you, because while doing research for this, I was just thinking the entire time, how does one person have the energy? So how do you, I know this is a vague question, but how and why do you do so much with your day?
Honestly, I feel like I don't. Like I think it's the way you approach things, right? Like I feel that um, I used to have days that were completely disorganized, that felt overwhelming, that felt like I was trying to do too much in one day, maybe like 3 years ago or 4 years ago. And then I slowly started changing the way I looked at time management and the way I started looking at my days. And I honestly break them up in a way now that, maybe the first half of the week I focus only on one or two things because I know that I can't do more than that. And then the other half of the week I'll do something else. So then over time and over a few months, suddenly it'll be like, oh, now I have a new book coming out and the second season of a podcast and a new product and all of these things. But it's all been, stretched over time. So it's not like one day and suddenly you're like, though I did have a 17-hour day yesterday and I was exhausted by the end of it, but most of the days are quite are busy, but they're not overwhelmed.
So, and then again, this is just a random question. On average, how many hours are you working a day?
So pre-COVID, that answer would be very different. It was 12 to 14 minimum pre-COVID, but obviously COVID changed a lot and changed the way I was thinking about things. And the one thing I decided that I didn't want to work in that fashion anymore. So since July, it's been maybe 9 hours a day. Yeah, 10 hours a day.
Well, and are you seeing the difference in dropping from 12 to 14 to 9 to 10? Do you feel like you're doing more actually with your days?
I just feel a lot happier. I feel less guilty because I've kind of, I'm the kind of person that needs to constantly be doing something. Otherwise, I feel like I'm wasting time. And I feel like if I'm not working, I don't know if most entrepreneurs go through this guilt, but I'm like, oh, my team is working and I'm not working. So I used to feel that guilt a lot, which made me feel like I needed to work that much harder. But now I'm like, you're human and this is how much you can do and this is when you work and then this is when you don't. And that has really, I had to teach myself how to do that.
That's awesome. And you're right. I think, there's always that guilt where if you're just watching a TV show, you're thinking, what am I doing? I could be doing this and that. But, actually you need that refreshing time. And that goes on to my next question of, you're also, you've talked about setting goals, and I love your goals because they're both personal and professional, and you do all these crazy things like run a half marathon and stuff like that. So how do you decide what you're going to do with your year? What does that process look like? Is it random? Oh yeah?
It just comes to me. I've never like sat and decided that this is what I'll do this year. But at some point something will happen and I'll be like, I'm drawn towards this. The marathon was something that I wanted to do before I turned 30 and it just, it happened. Learning French and giving a speech in French was one of the things I did one year, and that also, somebody called me up from France and they were like, we'd like you to come and speak to these 5,000 small business owners, and I said yes. And then later they were like, oh, it's going to be in French, and I was like, oh. And then they said, but we'll give you, it's a year. So I said, okay, I'll do it, and then that became the thing for the year. I wanted to always dance on stage and I was, petrified of it. So one year I said, this year I'm going to do hip hop classes like jazz funk. And at the end of it, I'm going to do a performance. And I loved it so much that I did it for 3 years after. So it's, I feel like these things come to me. The big one is to climb Mount Fuji. Which is I don't know when that's going to happen. It was supposed to be a 2020 thing, but clearly it didn't happen then. But Mount Fuji is the big one, yeah.
That is very interesting. And now this podcast is a little bit tactical, so it gets very specific into these kind of things. So let's take the French example. So you had to learn an entire language in 1 year, and that was your goal for the year. So how do you go about?
To be fair, I did. It wasn't a language that I didn't know anything about. I knew some basics. I did study French in college in India, but I mean, learning French here means, it doesn't mean anything. You learn it once a week. But I did live in France for a year. I did live in Switzerland for 4 years. So I'm very good with picking up languages anyway. Like, that's my sort of strong suit. I can sing a song in probably 10 different languages, but I love it. So I had a year for it. And then when I decided that I'm seriously going to do it, the first thing I did was I got a French tutor. So I knew like my schedule is crazy, and I needed someone who could just keep up with what my timelines are like. So I got a really great French tutor who taught me 3 times a week. So I would spend an hour with her 3 days a week for almost the whole year. And then that's how I actually got into listening to podcasts. Because I was like, I travel these distances between work and home, and I'm just sitting there doing nothing in traffic. Let me use that time to learn something. And I was like, let me see if there are any French podcasts. And that's when I kind of found like, you learn French, like 5-minute, like word of the day, and how do you conjugate something. And I loved it. I loved the medium. And that's when I fell in love with podcasting actually. So I did 1 year of watching everything on Netflix that was in French, listening to as many podcasts I could. My friend at the time who was working with me at the cafe speaks French fluently, so really like practicing with him, harassing him every day with the same questions over and over again. And then it was kind of easy in the manner that it was 12 minutes that I actually had to speak French for, and I had the questions that they were going to ask me. So it was, they did kind of throw me 1 or 2 that I wasn't prepared for, but I could manage to answer them anyway. But I was prepared. So it was, I think, more than just the French part of it. The actually mortifying part was that stage of, in front of 5,000 people. That was kind of, I think even if I had to go give a speech in English there, would be really challenging. But then not being able to kind of, fluently, naturally just go with what's coming into your head was difficult. But now, anything after that is just like piece of cake. Like, I'm just like, I have to give I did something last week with the Canadian embassy and whatever. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna, I took 10 minutes before the talk and I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to say. And I was so easy about it because I was like, if you can do, another language, then English is easy.
That is awesome. And I took French for 8 years. And I think the entire thing I can say is comment tu t'appelles. And I don't even know if that is right.
I would say it like that in France.
Yeah. Wait, how do you say it then?
No, like, it's so bookish, right? Like, you never in normal conversation be like,
Yeah, that's it. I'm awful with languages, but I love that, it's kind of like getting out of your comfort zone. Is that kind of the thing? You always set a personal goal on top of a professional one?
Yeah, I think that, your goals do have to scare you. You read about this a lot all the time, but I genuinely believe that if it's not scary enough, if it's not hard enough, if it's not keeping you up at night, it's not going to change and transform you. It's just going to be, yeah, okay, I did this. But I remember so clearly before the marathon, the 2 weeks before the marathon, I couldn't sleep. I was just like, I wasn't a runner, it wasn't something that that came easily to me. And it was just, I'd only ever done like 5 or 6 kilometers before, and now I was going to aim to do 22, which was kind of crazy. But I honestly, the night before, I couldn't sleep. I woken up at 5 a.m. thinking, should I do this? Should I not do this? And I was just like, put your shoes on. That's all I would tell myself in training. Every day when I would want to quit, I would just be like, just put your shoes on. and then the next step would be, okay, just get to the training center. Okay, so I just put your shoes on, and I did it. And like I said, it just it's not for anybody or anything. It's just for me to remind myself that honestly, when you put your mind to something, you can achieve it. So it's reminders that I put for myself every year. Like, hey, what can I do this year?
Well, hello there again. Thank you for watching that clip from my full podcast with Pooja Dhingra. If you want to listen to the entire conversation, go here. There's going to be a link popping up on the screen, hopefully. And there will be a link in the comment section below, so check it out. If you love this clip, I'm sure you're going to love the full conversation. And make sure to subscribe if you want more of these type of little clips from our full podcasts. Thanks again, and see you all in the next one.